The corporate lobby, packed with people. Single dad Ethan Cole stood trembling as he handed over his job application. Suddenly, two security guards grabbed him. CEO Adriana Hale stepped forward, her voice cold as ice. "Open his bag. I won't allow a suspicious person into this company." Employees whispered around them, eyes full of contempt. Ethan's face went red. He tried to hold onto his bag. Just as the guard was about to tear everything out, an older woman's voice rang out. "Adriana, stop. That man saved my life." The entire lobby went dead silent. Ethan Cole was 36 years old, a single father, working every manual labor job he could find to support his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Loading trucks, delivering packages, cleaning construction sites, anything that paid. His wife had died when Lily was just 2 years old. Since then, Ethan had been father, mother, and sole provider all at once, fighting against medical debt that never seemed to shrink no matter how many extra shifts he took. That morning, Lily had suffered a severe asthma attack, triggered by mold in their cheap rental room. The walls were literally making his daughter sick. The doctor's words haunted him. "If you don't change her living environment, she'll keep having episodes. Eventually, one won't stop." Ethan felt ice in his veins, terror like he hadn't known since his wife's funeral. He made a decision. He would apply for a permanent position at Hale Corporation, facilities maintenance, steady work, benefits. The first stable job opportunity in years. He carried an old gray canvas bag. Inside it, among his sparse belongings, was a piece of paper with childish handwriting. "Daddy, you can do it. I love you." That morning, Hale Corporation had issued an internal alert. Suspect in theft of internal files carries a gray canvas bag with black straps. Security cameras had caught only the back view of a poor-looking man. The theft had occurred exactly 30 minutes before Ethan arrived. Adriana Hale, the young CEO, was under pressure from the board to find the suspect. If she couldn't, she'd be seen as losing control of internal security. Her authority questioned. Her competence doubted. When Ethan walked in, security immediately noticed his gray canvas bag, too similar to the description in the alert. Ethan stood awkwardly in the luxurious lobby, feeling incredibly small among people wearing $1,000 suits. His clothes were clean but worn. His shoes resoled twice. Everything about him screamed poverty in a room designed to celebrate wealth. An employee glanced at his bag and whispered to a colleague, "God, that looks just like the suspect's bag." Ethan tried to stay calm. He placed his application folder on the reception desk. His heart pounded as he thought about Lily needing a better home, cleaner air, a chance to breathe without struggling. Suddenly, the security manager rushed over and whispered something into Adriana's ear. She looked at the gray canvas bag, then looked at Ethan from head to toe. Her face locked into an expression of cold stone, not because she looked down on poor people, but because she believed her company was being sabotaged. Someone had stolen confidential files. The description matched. The timing matched. In her mind, the math was simple. Suspicious timing plus matching bag equals probable cause. She didn't see a desperate father. She saw a potential threat. Ethan felt the atmosphere shift, felt eyes focusing on him, felt the weight of assumption pressing down like physical force. He had been judged before, by landlords who assumed he couldn't pay rent, by employers who assumed single dads were unreliable, by society that saw poverty as a personal failing. But this felt different. This felt dangerous. The receptionist's smile had frozen. Security guards had positioned themselves on either side of him. Exit routes were being blocked. Ethan's hands started to shake, not from guilt, from fear, because he knew how this looked. And he knew that explanations from poor people were rarely believed. Before we continue, tell us where you were watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. Security guards immediately grabbed Ethan's arms, firm, professional, but with an edge that suggested they'd use force if necessary. Their grip was tight enough to hurt without leaving marks. The kind of practiced restraint that comes from training. Adriana's voice cut through the lobby chatter, cold and commanding. "Open his bag." Employees around them stopped what they were doing. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Coffee cups paused halfway to lips, turned to watch. Some pulled out phones to record. Public humiliation escalating in real time. This was the kind of drama that would be gossiped about for weeks. A female employee muttered, loud enough to be heard, "Look at that bag. Must be the thief." Another voice joined in. "I knew something was off about him. The way he was looking around nervously. Poor people always think they can just walk into places like this," someone else added with barely concealed disdain. Ethan's face burned red, his heart constricted. He had never been treated like a criminal in front of dozens of people. The shame was suffocating. Worse than any physical pain. He could feel every eye on him, judging, assuming, convicting him without trial. In their minds, he was already guilty. The canvas bag was evidence. His worn clothes were evidence. His nervousness was evidence. He tried to explain, "I'm just here to submit my application." "I didn't," Adriana cut him off sharply. "You have the right to remain silent. Let us do our job." Her tone was clipped, professional, but underneath it was steel. She wasn't asking. She was commanding. This was her building, her company, her rules. The security guard placed his hand on the bag's zipper, humiliation reaching its peak. The sound of the metal teeth seemed impossibly loud in the sudden quiet of the lobby. Ethan thought about Lily, about how he'd have to tell her that Daddy didn't get the job, that they'd have to stay in the moldy apartment longer, that her breathing would keep getting worse, that Daddy had failed again. His daughter's face appeared in his mind. Those trusting eyes, the way she always said, "It's okay, Daddy," even when things clearly weren't okay. The way she never complained about their cheap food or their cramped apartment or the fact that she didn't have the toys other kids had. The guard started to pull the zipper. The bag began to open. Ethan closed his eyes, bracing for whatever would come next. At that exact moment, a voice rang out. Older, trembling slightly but filled with unmistakable authority. "Adriana, stop." The words weren't shouted, but they carried. Command wrapped in age and wisdom, the kind of voice that had been obeyed for decades. Everyone turned. The CEO's mother, Margaret Hale, a woman employees privately called the Old Lioness, walked forward leaning on a cane. Her steps were measured but determined. Every tap of the cane on the marble floor echoed like a judge's gavel. She was in her 70s, silver hair pulled back elegantly, wearing a simple but expensive suit, her face lined with age but her eyes sharp as ever. She had built this company alongside her late husband, had fought corporate raiders in the 80s, had navigated market crashes and hostile takeovers. She was not someone to be dismissed. The security guard froze. "Ma'am, do you know this person?" His voice had changed completely, the aggressive certainty replaced by confusion and concern. Because if Mrs. Hale was intervening, something was very wrong with their assumptions. Margaret looked at Ethan with eyes full of profound gratitude, recognition dawning across her face like sunrise. "This young man carried me to the sidewalk and bandaged my wounds when I fell last week." The lobby erupted in whispers, shocked murmurs spreading like ripples across water. "No way! The CEO's mother was saved by a single dad? That's impossible. Why wouldn't she have said something?" "Oh God, we just accused her savior of theft." Adriana's face went pale, all the color draining from her cheeks as the implications hit her. She took half a step back, her professional composure cracking. You're the one." Her voice had lost its edge. Now it held disbelief, embarrassment, dawning horror at what she had almost done. Ethan nodded slightly, his eyes stinging with tears he refused to let fall. "I didn't know who you were, ma'am. I just saw you needed help." His voice was quiet, dignified despite the humiliation he'd just endured. Because that was the kind of man he was. Even now, in this moment, he wasn't seeking praise or recognition. He was simply stating a fact. The retention spike hit hard when Margaret reached into her purse with trembling fingers and pulled out a handkerchief. White linen, now stained with old brown blood. The exact one Ethan had used to stop her bleeding when she fell. She had kept it. Washed it carefully but preserved the stains. Evidence. Memory. Proof. I fell on 3rd Street, Margaret explained to the assembled crowd, her voice carrying authority even as it shook with emotion. It was raining. I slipped on the wet pavement. My head was bleeding. People walked past me. So many people. They looked, but they kept walking. She paused, letting that sink in, the shame of it, the ugliness of a society where people ignored a bleeding old woman on the street. This man stopped, got down on his knees in the rain and the dirt, tore his own shirt to make a bandage, stayed with me until the ambulance came, then disappeared before I could even thank him properly. Adriana suddenly lost all her cold CEO composure, stood frozen like a statue, her mind racing, recalculating everything, the internal alert, the matching bag, the suspicious timing, all of it now suspect, all of it possibly a terrible mistake. Security released Ethan immediately. The guards stepped back, hands dropping to their sides, faces showing the first hints of regret. One of them muttered, "Sir, we didn't know." Adriana gathered herself, straightened her spine. She had made a mistake, a potentially catastrophic one, but she was still the CEO, still in charge, and she needed to handle this with whatever grace she could muster. She spoke quietly but loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. "Please, follow me to my office. We need to clarify everything." It wasn't an order this time. It was a request, almost a plea. Ethan walked through the parted crowd, through a corridor of changed expressions, from contempt to curiosity, from judgment to respect, from certainty of his guilt to confusion about what had really happened, from mockery to shame. Whispers followed him like autumn leaves. "That's the guy who saved Mrs. Hale? We almost threw him out. Oh my God, we recorded him being accused. I shared it already. I need to delete it. Did you see his face? He looked terrified, and we just laughed at him." The walk to the elevator felt like miles. Every step heavy with the weight of dozens of eyes. But this time the weight was different. Not crushing judgment, but crushing guilt from those watching. The company had just publicly humiliated a good father without knowing they were disrespecting the person who had saved the CEO's family matriarch. And now everyone would have to live with what they had almost done. Would you have stayed silent or spoken up? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Adriana led Ethan into a glass-walled conference room. The elevator ride had been silent, awkward. Margaret had come with them, her cane tapping rhythmically against the floor. A metronome of judgment. The conference room was on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, leather chairs, a table that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Everything designed to intimidate. But Adriana wasn't using it for intimidation now. She closed the door, drew the blinds, sat down heavily, as if the weight of what had just happened in the lobby had finally hit her. She dropped the cold facade completely, replaced by visible shock and something that looked like shame. Her hands were shaking slightly as she poured water from a crystal pitcher. She offered a glass to Ethan. He took it. Their fingers didn't touch. "Why did you leave after saving my mother?" Adriana's voice was different now, smaller, more human. The CEO mask had cracked, revealing the daughter underneath. Ethan answered softly, "Because she was scared. I didn't want to frighten her more by hovering. She needed medical help, not a stranger making her uncomfortable." He remembered that day clearly. The rain, the blood, Margaret's eyes wide with shock and fear. The way she had flinched when he first approached. Because that's what elderly women are taught, to fear strangers, especially poor-looking men. "I called 911, Ethan continued. Stayed with her until I heard the sirens. Then I left. She was going to be okay. That's all that mattered." Margaret placed her hand on Ethan's shoulder. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone her age. "No one does that for a stranger. You saved my life, son." Her voice broke slightly on the word son, because she had lost a son years ago to cancer, and sometimes the way Ethan spoke, the gentleness in his voice despite his rough circumstances, reminded her of what she'd lost. Adriana was silent for several seconds, her mind clearly working through something. Then she opened her laptop with sudden decisiveness. Internal emails appeared on the screen, dozens of them, all marked confidential, all marked urgent. She turned the screen so Ethan could see. I need to show you something, because you're involved whether you want to be or not. Twist 1. The executive board was fabricating false records to force Margaret off the board of directors. They were claiming Margaret had mismanaged confidential documents and was mentally unfit to serve due to age-related cognitive decline. Ethan scrolled through the emails, his expression darkening. Legal memos, medical assessments that Margaret had never consented to, psychological evaluations performed remotely by doctors who had never met her. All of it building a case, all of it lies. But Margaret's fall, which happened on the exact day they claimed she was in the office signing incorrect paperwork at 2 p.m., destroyed their entire narrative. Because she couldn't have been in two places at once. Ethan was the only witness who could confirm the time and location of Margaret's accident on 3rd Street. Far from the office, during the exact hours they claimed she was signing documents that would incriminate her. Adriana's voice shook slightly as she explained, "You didn't just save my mother. You saved my company from being taken over by traitors." The word hung in the air. Traitors, not competitors, not rivals, traitors from within. Ethan was shocked. I have nothing to do with this. I just helped someone who fell. And that's exactly why you're dangerous to them. Adriana looked at him intensely. You have no stake in this, no reason to lie, no motivation to protect anyone. You're the worst possible thing for their conspiracy, an innocent witness. Now you do, Adriana finished. You're involved. They know you exist. They've already been following you. Twist 2 hit even harder. She pulled up another folder. Among the emails were photographs, clear surveillance photos, of Lily, Ethan's daughter, playing in their apartment courtyard, walking to school, sitting in class visible through a window, because the executive board had been following him to fabricate additional extortion motives, to build a narrative that he was a con man who had staged the rescue to get money from a wealthy family. Ethan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, his face transforming to genuine anger. Real fury, the kind a parent feels when their child is threatened. Why is my daughter mentioned in these emails? His voice was louder than he'd meant it to be. Harsher. The careful control he usually maintained shattering in the face of his daughter being dragged into corporate corruption. Adriana immediately raised her hands in a calming gesture. Not by me, by them. They wanted to find any weakness to make you look suspicious, to build a case that you're a con artist, that you deliberately let my mother fall and then rescued her to extort money. She pulled up more emails, messages between the 3 board members, discussing Ethan, planning how to discredit him, suggesting they could apply pressure through the daughter if necessary. Ethan felt ice in his veins. Are you telling me my daughter is in danger? I'm telling you, Adriana said carefully, that these people will do whatever it takes to protect themselves. And right now, you're the biggest threat to them. Margaret gripped Ethan's hand, trembling slightly, not from age or fear, but from rage. You have to tell the truth. You're the only one who can protect us. And we're the only ones who can protect you and your daughter. The 3 of them sat in silence for a moment, processing, understanding the weight of what they were facing. Then Adriana pulled out a legal pad, started writing. We need a plan. They formulated it together over the next hour. First, pull traffic camera footage showing the exact moment Margaret fell. Time-stamped, location-stamped, irrefutable. Second, cross-reference with the company's access logs proving she wasn't in the building. Badge scans, security footage, computer login records. Third, Ethan would write a detailed witness statement. Date, time, weather conditions, what Margaret was wearing, what injuries he observed, everything. Fourth, federal investigators would be brought in, because this wasn't just corporate malfeasance anymore. This was fraud, conspiracy, possibly wire fraud and racketeering. Margaret made the calls. She still had friends, people who owed her favors. Within an hour, 2 FBI agents were on their way to the building. Ethan said something that touched everyone present. I don't help people to be repaid. I help until the end. Adriana looked at him for a long moment. The first time she'd seen a man who wanted absolutely nothing in return, who wasn't angling for a job or money or favor, who was just decent because that's who he was. It unsettled her, because in her world, everyone wanted something. Everyone had an angle. Everyone was playing a game, except Ethan, who was just trying to keep his daughter healthy and do the right thing. Margaret explained more as they waited for the FBI. 3 board members want to force me out: Harrison, Chen, and Volkov. They've been embezzling funds through shell companies for at least 3 years, maybe longer. I discovered it 6 months ago while reviewing quarterly reports. Numbers that didn't add up. Contracts with suppliers that didn't exist. She pulled up financial documents, spreadsheets showing millions of dollars redirected, fake invoices, phantom suppliers with addresses that turned out to be empty lots or mail drops. I confronted Harrison first, Margaret continued. Thought he was unaware. Thought it was an accounting error. He looked me in the eye and told me I was imagining things, that I was getting old and confused. Her voice hardened. 2 weeks later, the campaign to declare me incompetent began. Suddenly, there were concerns about my mental fitness, suggestions that I should step down gracefully, offers of a generous retirement package if I just go quietly. They need me declared incompetent so they can install their own people, Adriana added. Once they control the board, they'll strip the company's assets through a series of necessary restructurings and disappear with hundreds of millions. Ethan processed this, the scale of it, the coldness. But I'm just a witness to an accident. How does that stop them? Adriana explained patiently. They claimed Mom signed fraudulent documents on Tuesday at 2 p.m. in the main office. But you saw her fall on 3rd Street at 1:45 p.m. The ambulance records show she arrived at the hospital at 2:10 p.m. She was in the emergency room being treated for a head wound during the exact time they claim she was in our building signing papers. One lie exposed, Margaret added with grim satisfaction, unravels all the others. If they lied about my location, what else did they lie about? And if they are willing to forge my signature on documents, what else have they forged? Ethan understood. You need me to testify. More than testify, Adriana said. We need you to be the person who makes them think twice about lying under oath. Because you have nothing to lose by telling the truth. No corporate career to protect. No political connections to preserve. You're just a good man who helps someone. And they have everything to lose if you do tell the truth. They were preparing for a war in the shadows against people who sat inside the company but wanted to destroy the Hale family from within. And Ethan, who had just wanted a job to help his daughter breathe easier, was now the linchpin in bringing down a multi-million-dollar conspiracy. Word leaked internally. The man who saved the CEO's mother was publicly humiliated. Employees found the footage of Ethan being grabbed by security. Social media exploded with outrage. The executive board members started panicking when federal investigators sent subpoenas. Margaret appeared in the main lobby before the entire company, leaning on her cane, but her voice still strong. This man saved my life. Who among you dares to call him a suspect? The entire company bowed their heads in shame. Adriana looked down at the assembled crowd. From today forward, no one in this company will judge another person by their canvas bag or their clothing. The employees who had laughed at Ethan came forward one by one to apologize. Ethan simply responded, "We all want to be respected." So do I. The investigation moved quickly. Phone records, bank statements, surveillance footage from shell company addresses that turned out to be empty offices. 2 weeks later, 3 executives were arrested, charged with embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. The amounts were staggering, over $8 million stolen over 3 years. The news covered it extensively. But what went viral wasn't the corporate crime story. It was the detail about how the case broke open because a single dad helped an old woman who had fallen. Adriana offered Ethan a position, supervisor of workplace integrity. His job would be to protect employees from injustice, to make sure no one else was treated the way he had been. I can't accept that, Ethan said at first. I don't have the education, the experience. You have something more important, Margaret replied. You have a moral compass that doesn't break under pressure. That's rarer than any degree. Lily came to visit the company. Margaret embraced her like a granddaughter. Adriana gave her a tour of the building, showing her where Daddy works now. In the cafeteria, employees who had once looked down on Ethan now greeted him respectfully. Not because he had power, but because he had proven character. One of the security guards who had grabbed him approached. Sir, I'm sorry. I was following orders, but I should have been more respectful. Ethan shook his hand. You were doing your job, I understand. Just remember that orders don't excuse cruelty. The company culture began to shift. Managers were retrained on unconscious bias. Security protocols were updated to include dignity protections. Anonymous reporting systems were strengthened. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. If you believe true strength comes from character, not wealth, let us know in the comments. Ethan's voice. First person, reflective. I came to Hale Corporation just to find a job. I didn't expect to find the truth. I learned that many wealthy people aren't cruel. They're just afraid of being betrayed. When you have a lot, you spend a lot of energy protecting it. Sometimes that fear makes you see enemies everywhere. Adriana wasn't a bad person. She was just under so much pressure, she didn't know who to trust. And her mother? She saw me as a human being, not a social class. That made all the difference. Lily asked me recently, Daddy, does that company still bully you? I smiled and touched her head. No, sweetheart, because now I have a whole family standing behind me. A new email arrived, an invitation to attend a board meeting. Not as a witness, but as the new supervisor of workplace integrity, with a salary that would let us move to an apartment without mold, with health insurance that covered Lily's asthma medication. I looked out the glass window. Adriana was there with her mother waiting for me. Sometimes one small act changes someone's entire world, and sometimes that same act changes your own life too. I used to think kindness was a luxury I couldn't afford. That survival meant keeping your head down and not getting involved. But helping Margaret taught me something different. Kindness isn't a luxury. It's an investment in the kind of world you want to live in. The executives who tried to destroy the Hales thought power came from money and position. They were wrong. Real power comes from integrity, from treating people with dignity even when no one's watching, from doing the right thing even when it costs you something. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father trying to give his daughter a better life. But I learned that sometimes the path to a better life runs through helping someone else first. Margaret tells people I saved her life, but the truth is she saved mine too, by seeing me, by standing up for me, by refusing to let her daughter's company become the kind of place that crushes good people. That's the world I want Lily to grow up in, where kindness is rewarded, where truth matters, where a single dad with a canvas bag isn't automatically a suspect. We're not there yet, but we're closer than we were, and that's worth something. Don't judge people by their possessions or their appearance. The person you dismiss might be the one who saves you. Treat everyone with dignity, because we're all one moment away from needing the kindness of a stranger. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to Hidden Heart Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten.